Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome to another episode of The Real Money Coach. We're excited to have you here. I am Marlon Smith, and we love, as you know, we always love to say, type in the chat box where you're watching from, because again, there's energy. It's a community, right? You know, we started this on April 2nd regarding the COVID-19 and how the world had been transformed upside down. And one of the things that we've come to realize is that, wow, this information is so important. We only thought we were going to do a couple virtual town hall sessions, but the feedback has been so exciting. So we'd love for you to go ahead and type in the chat box where you're watching from. Tonight, we have a very phenomenal presentation, and we have a very special guest entitled Getting Real About Real Estate. And I'm excited because, you know, real estate investments, it's one of the four pillars of creating generational wealth, right? And transferring generational wealth. And so with that, you know, one of the things I want you to understand, I don't know if you know this statistic, but I had done some research, and it says 90% of the world's millionaires have created their financial success by investing in real estate. And it's amazing, you know, for the average investor, real estate offers one of the best ways to develop significant wealth. And we're going to unpack that tonight because, again, real estate is a vehicle to allow you to create generational wealth, okay? And so it's very exciting because one of the things that I think is really important for us to understand is that there's so many benefits with real estate ownership. And we will be talking about that. So go ahead and type in the chat box where you're watching from, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. And then for those of you that are watching, please go ahead and hit the share button, right? Hit the share button so that your family, your friends can also tune in, right? And so we've got Charlotte in the house. We've got Delaware in the house. We've got Tacoma, Washington in the house, as well as, you know, others tuning in. So again, type in where you're watching from. And this is really exciting because today, you know, real estate is a vehicle. And for some of us, you know, we're going to, you know, be looking at, you know, home ownership as well as investments in real estate, you know, be it, you know, rental property, be it, what they call it, fix up and flip. So it's exciting. And so, you know, and I like to just open up a question, you know, for you is real estate investment important? Go ahead and say yes or no. Type in the chat box just to get the ball rolling. Yes or no. Okay. And so this is really good. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Tony Jackson, who will, my colleague and, you know, the person who we just really have come to appreciate, talk about, you know, this important topic tonight, getting real about real estate. So Tony, come on down.
Hey, Marlon, how you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Man, I am excited. I'm excited about tonight. I'm excited about our guest. I met him through, you know, George Fraser and at PNC when we were there in, I always say Baltimore, but it was just the harbor there. And man, I just was impressed by this guy. And so been really wanting to hook up with him. And so I'm so glad that he is actually going to be with us tonight and be a part of the show. And, you know, Marlon, as you know, we've been talking about like you mentioned, we started out talking about the stock market, right? We started talking about COVID-19 and the impact that it was having on the stock market, you know, the Dow Jones, S&P 500, NASDAQ, and so forth. And then we kind of evolved into giving our our viewers, some information about the stimulus check, you know, in terms of how that was going to work. We got PPP loan, we got all that kind of stuff. We had Michelle Mitchell, we had Mary Nicole Douglas, we talked about the taxes. Right. And then we had Eugene Mitchell join us. And we started to unpack this thing. Well, of course, we had the great George Fraser, Dr. Fraser. We're talking about the four pillars of generational wealth, right? Right. And as you just mentioned, you know, proper management of your current assets, having the proper insurance and investments, business development, and we're going to talk about some entrepreneurship down the road here. And then that was the real estate piece.
Yes.
And so real estate is so important. And I always think about George says, they're not making any more of it, right? And
Right.
so, um, and so that's just so interesting. And so many of our people have asked questions about real estate. And as you know, when we did the live classes, we'd have people come in and there'd be a lot of questions about, about real estate and, and all those type of things. So, we're just really excited about it. And so tonight we have an expert. He's got a huge, huge operation there in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. I think you're from that area, right? That's
I
your
am right around the Beltway. Yes, sir.
yeah.
So that's where I grew up.
It's gonna be pretty awesome. And then we started unpacking this racial wealth gap, and I don't think we can really properly address the racial wealth gap without talking about the gap in home ownership. And and I'm sure we can ask him some questions. So I want to encourage everyone to get your questions ready as it relates to home ownership, as it relates to real estate investing, Airbnb, whatever it is. I want you to have your questions ready. But we have to talk about the gap, and not. I think it's more than Marlon. I think it's more than just how many of us own homes versus how many of the general population owns homes, right? Because we're talking over 70% of white Americans own a home, and less than 42% was statistics that I saw. They were probably a couple years old, of African Americans own home. But then I think there's another sign in that is the value of the home. What about the gap in terms of the value of those homes compared to one demographic versus another? So it's not just a matter of owning a home, but how much equity do you own in the home?
Okay.
And those types of things that I think we need to unpack and talk about.
Sure. And, I think, Tony, already I had asked the question, is real estate investment important, right? And, we've got people, Dr. Bonita Harris says yes, Ruth says yes, and others, right? I mean, and so, what I love about tonight and what Emerick is going to do is really share why, right? And how you can participate, even if you do have ownership, what other things can you do, right? To, participate. As I said, over 90% of millionaires worldwide have created their portfolio or have some aspect of their portfolio in real estate investing. And so again, it's really just understanding, and I know you're real big on wealth transfer and how do we transfer wealth. Well, you can't transfer something that you're renting, right, to your family, but creating that dynasty is so important. So I'm excited. And I think one of the things, Tony, you mentioned that with what we're doing, we are really laying the foundation. Every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're here and we have different guests. And I know our YouTube channel, we're definitely developing that, and people are getting excited. And I know you have some special announcements that you wanted to share regarding, what we've got, some basically some VIP, videos and things of that nature on our YouTube channel. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to share before we bring up Emerick.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to release some videos. We're going to release some education material that will only go to YouTube. And so you have to be subscribed to our YouTube channel. Matter of fact, we're going to pause. We're going to put a stick in it. We're going to take a timeout and say, go there right now. Chris has posted the direct link to the YouTube channel. So if you want to go there right now and subscribe to the Real Money Coach, we're going to be releasing some things that are only going to be to our YouTube subscribers. And there may even be some, Marlon, there may even be some giveaways that only are available on YouTube. All right.
That's it.
So we're going to do some special things. So we're just asking everyone to go there, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and let's see if we can get that up over. I don't know, how many can we get tonight? Can we get 25 new subscribers tonight? Can we get 25 new subscribers? And then if you're watching this on the replay, please go there, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get it going.
Man, I appreciate that, Tony, because again, what I love about, YouTube and technology is that we have access to information. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're doing our best to bring you important information. And so, again, as Tony was saying, the beautiful thing about subscribing to our, YouTube channel is that you'll have access on your time, right? You'll have access. And then when we launch, certain special, videos and things of that nature, just on our YouTube channel, boom, you'll have the opportunity to watch that and be inspired and empowered. So again, thank you so much. We, I know people are doing it right now. So go ahead and click that link for the YouTube channel and go ahead and subscribe. Because again, as you know, this is good content. And I want to encourage you, for your family, your friends, encourage them. Right? With all that's going on, we need to make sure that we're focusing on information that inspires, that educates, that empowers. And so that's what we're about. So this is great. So Tony, we have some people that have said, yes, 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 real estate investment is important. From your perspective, before we bring up Emerick, why is real estate important?
Well, I think we hit it on some of the things. Is number one, and I'm sure he's going to unpack this, right? So
right.
I can't do it justice like Emerick's going to do it, but one of the things is, of course, it appreciates in value. We've talked a lot about not borrowing money to buy things that depreciate, but instead, what we want you to do is we want you to invest in things that appreciate in value. And generally speaking, that's what's going to happen with real estate. It's going to go up in value.
Sure.
Just like we're talking about, if it doesn't have a deed, it really doesn't transfer into generational wealth, right? A car is great. I mean, you could have a classic car with a title and all that kind of stuff, and that passes along, but it's not really wealth unless you have a huge collection of, exotic cars. But that deed to the property,
right,
to the acres, the deed to the house. Now, those are things that are transferable assets. And
sure.
Many times it can be done in tax advantaged ways. So that's why I think it's so important. And again, man, it's just like, we've talked about this before, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Right.
Book. And he talks about the feeling to own your own place, to own that roof that's over your head. What a good feeling that is. And I think that's part of it too. There's the emotional stuff. There's the emotional piece to it as well. And right. So I think it's all good.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you, Tony. And, I know we've got a wonderful group of individuals. I see my friend Elizabeth Hunter Price is here, and, Brother Day is here. And, and thanks, Brother Day, for already subscribing, and again, we encourage you to let others know as well. Right. And if you're already
subscribed, when we release the stuff, you'll get it. I mean,
exactly. So, let your family and your friends know, Brother Day, about, hey, check out this YouTube channel. These brothers are bringing the information, bringing the inspiration that makes a difference. And especially in these times, there's so much speculation. There's so much going on in our world. It's very important that we can anchor, in spite of the storms that are happening, we can anchor with some really great information. So excited, and I just want to say thank you for everyone who's here. Again, as Tony said, if there's any questions that you have, feel free to type that in the chat box. This is your time. This is a virtual town hall. And so we get to as many questions as we have. If there's any feedback you want to share, please. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I want to say that, because a lot of times we say, oh man, if I post this, no, please. If you have any, that's why we're here. We want to share information. And the last thing I want to say is, let's have some fun. So go ahead and click the share button, on this Facebook Live or YouTube Live, so that your family, your friends can also, get the feed, and so that they can also watch as well. So Tony, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you for introducing our special guest.
Hey, Marlon, I was just thinking about, man, I know something about real estate. You know what I know?
What do you know?
They say there's one word in real estate. What is it? Location, right?
That's right.
That's what they say.
Like
but here, man, so it's man, I can't wait to hear from him. We have Emerick Peace. He's the operator. I'm just reading right off of his bio, man. He is the operator partner owner of Keller Williams Preferred Properties, KWPP. It's a multi-billion-dollar, almost said million, man. I always took one of the zeros off. It is a multi-billion-dollar residential luxury commercial real estate sales brokerage with more than, check this out, 570 associates. It's located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, Prince George's County. Keller Williams Preferred Properties is the undisputed #1 real estate brokerage in terms of market share, transaction, and sales volume in Prince George's County, Maryland, one of the largest single office brokerage on the Eastern Coast. Man, I like that. I like that. And so I like undisputed, man. Makes me think about Muhammad Ali. Undisputed. Undisputed. Now, Emerick himself has over 27 years of real estate experience. And, you know, again, what I like about him is what I've seen from him at PNC. He's been a part of the Fraser Net. He was the original real estate expert for the Moses movement, which preceded the wins that we're doing now with Dr. Fraser. And so this guy knows what he's talking about. Otherwise, we wouldn't bring him to you tonight. So without any further ado, let's bring on the man himself, Mr. Emerick Peace. How you doing, Emerick?
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? How are you?
We're doing well. Man, last year, maybe a couple years, about this time, man, we would be getting ready to go to PNC in July normally. That's where I first met you. And then, you know, so now PNC's moved back to October. So I guess I'm gonna have to wait. So I couldn't wait till October to see you. So I had to invite you to be part of the Real Money Coach.
I appreciate that. And for me being here, it's about sharing and pouring and giving. And I appreciate the opportunity to share. And I just tell everybody to strap up because I'm gonna challenge your brain a little bit. And I hope everybody's up for the challenge.
All right. All right. I love it. I love it. He's going to challenge us tonight. So Chris, you're going to take me off screen, man, so I can I got my notes ready. I'm ready to write some notes down. And so go ahead and challenge us, man. The floor is yours. We usually end about 9 o'clock or so, but we might pop on with some other questions, but go ahead and just share what's on your heart tonight.
Okay. So, I've been fighting. I've been on this topic for the past 3 weeks, and in light of everything that's happened, we have all kinds of options that are there, and the real conversation is about people keep having that equality and equity conversation, and that fits right up the real estate alley with this whole idea of equity and equality. And so when you take a look at my screen, what you see is equity, equality, and reality. And one of the things that we don't understand about real estate is that real estate fits into all of these boxes. And here's some things that's said about this. When you take a look at this, and you talk about equality. This is World Bank. World Bank describes equity as equal access to opportunities that allow people to pursue a life of their own choosing and to avoid extreme deprivation of outcomes. And so you think about that for a second. That's equity. And really what they're talking about is, do you have money, right? Do you have money, and do you have the ability to purchase, buy, use economic resources to grow? And as it was stated earlier, most economic resources in this world, the riches come through real estate. God, as George said, God stopped making land 1 billion years ago, and he ain't making no more. The question is, do you own it? And so in that conversation about land, there's another conversation of social equity. And social equity is the active commitment to fairness, justice, equality, and the formulation of public policy, distribution of services, implementation of public policy, and management of all institutions serving the public. I want you to be clear about it, directly by contract. And you're going to see where I'm going with this in a second. The government's role in social equity. Public administration includes all persons involved in public governance to seek to prevent and reduce inequality and injustice based on significant social characteristics to promote greater equality and access to services. All right, I want y'all gonna hit me. Y'all gonna get this in a minute. Why is money the driver in social equity? Because they have this thing called the Gini coefficient, and the Gini coefficient is a measure of income inequality, right? And with that, the Gini coefficient represents the distribution of wealth in the community, with which 0 represents equal distribution, and 1 representing all the wealth in the hands of one individual. So we go on here in a second. Politics and social equity. Now, to wrap your brain around this one right here, politics and social equity. We're going to drop all the way down. In 2002, Bartels determined that voting behavior of senators reflected responsiveness to affluent constituents that was 3 times as great as to the lower income constituents. All right, so here we go. Let me give y'all this right here. The laws in America were created for the business owner and the landowner. The police are here to serve and protect the business owner and the landowner, right? And so a lot of times in our community, we have challenges with the services, right? We have services that, well, the schools are not as good. The police department is slow to respond. The ambulatory services are slow to respond. The fire department. We just have all these issues with public services. Well, the reason why we have all these issues, and historically we have all these issues with public services, because all of those public services are paid for through land tax, through taxes on property, right? And if we only own 40% of the houses, that means that we don't own 60%. It's really 41 and some change. So for round numbers, we're going to say 60%. If 60% of our population are tenants and all of the public services are paid for by the landowner, when you go into a community and it's primarily a tenant-based community, tenants don't pay property taxes. So they don't pay into the school systems. Tenants don't pay into the property taxes, so they don't pay for the ambulatory services. Tenants don't pay for the police department because they're paid for by the property taxes. So at the end of the day, this is the way society looks at tenants. This is the way that society looks at tenants. Say, you're not the landowner. You don't pay property taxes. So you really, really, really don't deserve these services because you're not paying for these services. These services are paid for by the landowner. So as a gratis of you being a tenant, we're going to extend these services to you. We're just not going to extend these services to you at the same care, concern, and level that we would deliver these services to the landowner. So historically in Black communities, it's a tenant-based community, and we don't get these services. We don't get them at the same level. That's the part that we don't understand, because when we go back to the previous slides, the studies show that the senators voting reflects of their affluent constituency, which really means the landowner and the business owner. So if you are not in one of those categories, the governmental structure is really not built for you because they don't listen to you. And just to put this in a different place, right? If you take a look at apartment buildings, you go to an apartment building has 500 residents in an apartment building. Have you ever seen an election sign in front of an apartment building? Open up the chat on that one. You don't see election signs in front of an apartment building. Now, if you go to a homeowner community, you'll see election signs all up and down the street because the politicians are paying attention to those folks. The truth be told, the politicians don't even look at tenants as valuable constituents to even consider their vote, to be honest with you, because they understand that in a tenant environment, there's a 30% motility in a tenant environment, which means that in any given cycle, 30% of the people are moving in and moving out. And so where home ownership comes so important with this is that the homeowner is elevated to a different level where the political structure listens to a homeowner, which this slide is telling you. The political structure listens to the business owner. The political structure counts you as a valuable constituent when you are a homeowner or a business owner. So let's get that one straight. And so if we really want to know how to affect change, we really affect change through our dollars and through the political structure. So we talked about the political structure. Let's talk about the dollars. When we talk about the dollars as being a homeowner has equity in the property. So when a homeowner has equity in the property, as they own the property longer and longer, they accumulate more equity. As the homeowner accumulates more equity, that equates to more money. And so the truth about life and the truth about affecting change and the truth about being respected in America is this: unless your pile of green is as big as their pile of green, they really don't care about you, because you have no way to put economic pressure on them because you don't have the financial resources. To put that in a different way, whenever something happens in the world, and if it happens towards a Jewish person, the Anti-Defamation League will step in. The Anti-Defamation League will put financial pressure on the person who has said or brought ill will to the Jewish community, and they will bring them to their knees. And whatever they were doing, they're going to stop. In our community, in the Black community, we don't have enough economic power to inflict. That's not true. We do have enough economic power. We don't harness our economic power in such a way where we can inflict financial harm to anyone to make them bend, yield, or bow to what we're looking for. And so what I'm saying about this whole conversation about property ownership is that when you're a property owner, when you're a landowner, and you get enough landowners in a mass, they can make change. They can affect change. So the reason why home ownership and property ownership and business ownership is so important is because you get to dictate which direction your life travels. You get to dictate where the political structure is going to make a decision. And at the end of the day, you have the ability to inflict financial harm on the powers to be, that they change their thought process about you, where you live, and how they should deal with you. And so with that being in mind, when we talk about home ownership in and of itself, just as an owner occupant, it's been proven that the children who come from homeowner environments typically thrive better in life. And I'm going to use myself as an example. I can't tell you what it feels like to live in a rented property, because as a child, my mother always bought a property. My mother never made more than $8.75 an hour in her life. She owns 3 properties clear and free. So and me as an adult, and even as a child, I understood what it was like to go and collect rent money, right? And I couldn't understand tenancy of being a tenant because I never lived that life. And so the outcomes of an effect of what they've said is that children who come from homeowner environments usually have more stable lives. They have a more positive outlook on life, and they typically are more productive members of society, just because of all of this influences surrounding home ownership and that point of stability. Because as it was noted in the Harvard study, that 30% of tenants move from year to year. So the motility rate in tenants is always a moving situation, where in a homeowner situation, it's a more stable environment. And so with that being said, yeah, go ahead.
I don't want that to, you just shared so much, man. You just dropped a whole lot of knowledge that I hadn't even ever thought about in terms of the political power for landowners versus tenants.
Okay.
Because, I'm a numbers guy, right? I'm always thinking about, from the terms of the IRS code and those type of things are written. And I've said it over and over again. It's written for 2 people. It's written for the business owner and the landowner, right?
Yeah.
Those are the 2 that have the most advantage. But when you start talking about just having the ability, the services that are coming, because oftentimes we relegate that to being because of it's a Black community,
right?
It's this type of community. But you just brought another whole aspect to it in terms of it's the landowners. It's the percent of home ownership that might be in a particular community that will dictate the quality that they receive. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was a tremendous nugget that I never even considered. Man, that's huge.
Well, and that's just a fact. But again, when we don't understand the theory or the thought behind the whole social dynamics of owning real estate, we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And in this process, we have to figure out why is this such a systemic issue? It's a systemic issue partly because we just don't know that we should own real estate, even though we have the means, because we got a Cadillac, we got a Mercedes, we got a Cadillac, we got a Mercedes, we can have a house. And that's just a paradigm shift for us in just understanding what the possibilities are in the realm of who we are as people.
Well, and we've heard the cliche from George uses the cliche, if you got a Land Rover and a landlord, he said you ought to have your butt kicked. And then,
Right, exactly.
I think even in Eugene Mitchell's book, he says if you have a Lexus and a landlord, then you have a problem. And so it becomes a mindset of, we don't need to drive our wealth or wear our wealth because that's not really wealth. No. And really, I think it's displaced material counseling. Like it's like we buy these material things somehow to feed our egos and all those type of things, and not understanding that the real wealth is in property ownership.
Right. And so with that being said, it's not even really the question of us feeding our egos about property ownership. We just don't know. If you really ask someone, would you rather own where you live or own what you drive? They would really say, I'd rather own what I live or where I live. However, the social structure that we've been under, right? It's put us in a frame of mind where we have to look good on the exterior as to what we present to other people, and that's what's ultimately important.
Wow, Chris, I even put that up. That was good. He said, "Would you rather own what you drive or own where you live?"
Absolutely.
That's a tremendous question that we need to ask ourselves. And I think home ownership can happen earlier than most people think. But what do you say to the person today, as we're talking about this, that feels as though, or they're in a situation where they feel like they can't own, or they're maybe their finances, or maybe their credit, or they want to own, but they're just not able to do it at this time. What do you say to them?
But Rome wasn't built in a day. If your credit is bad, you didn't get bad credit overnight. You built to that place. And so one of the things that we have to do is we have to seek competent professional advice as to what our credit profile really should look like, or how to improve our credit profile. One of the big challenges that we have is that we have a challenge credit profile, and we're not willing to correct the challenges because we look at it as it's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us money that we don't have. And the truth is, it's costing us money that we already spent. And so the sooner we get out of that we get out of that mentality that we're spending money instead of we have to get out of the mentality of spending money and think about investing money.
Right. Well, you just kind of led, man. I got to make this plug. I mean, a few weeks back, we had my daughter, Adrienne Jackson, on. She really broke down some things with credit, what makes up your credit. And then we also had a credit attorney come on and talk about some of those type of things. And so, I just want to encourage people, don't sit back and do nothing. If you're interested, you can email us at info@therealmoneycoach, and we'll put you in touch with someone. We'll put you in touch with Adrian, because we're launching the Real Money Coach Credit Repair to help people with that, because it's the same thing. You can do many things on your own, but there's some things that it's worth the investment to get it done exponentially and get it done right, and those type of things. It's just like, I would never go out and buy property without a realtor, right?
That's a wise choice.
And now even we've seen this in Japan, where you can go to 7-Eleven and take out a life insurance policy on a kiosk. Now, I wouldn't recommend that, because you don't know what you're buying, right? And so there's certainly wisdom and wise counsel, which is the reason why you're here tonight, because we want people to hear some wise counsel. So I just wanted to just pop in, man. I'm gonna let you go back to your slideshow, but I thought it was just so deep. We were talking about the percent of ownership, the political power of home ownership, as well as all those other infrastructure and services and stuff. And you said this. You said that renters tend to move so frequently, so politicians don't invest in them, because there might be in another district by the time election rolls around again.
30% motility, but Harvard study says it's a 30% motility rate in tenants.
Wow. So continue on.
Okay, so here's where we are, right? In this place of home ownership, we talked about the home ownership part. Let's talk about the landlord part, because there's an investment component here too for a lot of people. And so when we start talking about that, just to be clear, there is an investment space, because God said the poor will always be with us. And in that place, and the Bible said the poor will always be with us. And so in that place, right, there's a place for tenants. There are always going to be tenants. And there's an opportunity as an investor and as a landlord by the same token. And so what that really means is this, is that if you already own a home, why do you only own one home? Why can't you own two homes? Why can't you own three homes? So when we start talking about this thing about investment properties and being a landlord, it takes a little work. It takes a stomach. I suggest when people when they buy investment properties, that you seek a competent property manager. If you know that you are not the most savvy business person, however, you have the resources and the means to be able to purchase a second or a third home, hire a property manager. The high property manager will take all the load off you. They'll collect the rent. They'll make sure that the repairs get done on a timely basis. They will interact with the tenant. If the tenant does not pay properly, they will file proper eviction notice for the tenant to get the tenant removed from your property. So many times that we decide to be landlords, and when people decide to be a landlord, it takes a stomach to be a landlord. It's much more than just a business transaction. It becomes personal and business, because God forbid you are a landlord and you have to evict the tenant. That is the worst feeling in the world if you have any kind of heart about you, because you got to set a family and kids out on the street, and you got to have the stomach for that. You can't let them stay in your house, and it's a tough task. And so with that place of being a landlord, let me give you this one, right? If you were to buy a property, I'm going to use a number. If you buy an investment property at age 40, most mortgages are 30 years. You don't have to take a 30-year mortgage. You can take a 30-year mortgage. However, you take the 30-year mortgage and you accelerate the mortgage and pay it off in 15, so that if you purchase a property by 40, by age 55, it's paid off. So if the property is paid off by 55, then from 56 until you die, you're collecting mailbox money. Mailbox money. And so what happens is, let's just say if you're 40, I'm just using 40, you can use it for any number. Let's use it for 50. Let's put it in a different place. If you're 50, you get a 30-year mortgage, you pay it like a 15-year mortgage. By 65, it's paid off. Now you have retirement mailbox money. And so what happens in that place, let's just say when you purchase this property, hypothetically speaking, the mortgage is $1,200. You're charging $1,700 in rent. So the property's cash flowing $500 a month. The property's cash flowing $500 a month. You take that $500 a month for at least the first 3 years. You take $300 of that and you put it back into a repair fund. So that way you always have at least a $3,600 cushion minimum for that particular property. As you go along, you take the balance of that money and you put the balance of that money, another $400, and you put it to the principal balance. That's how you accelerate it to 15 years. So by age 65, you have another retirement income. So if the property had a $1,200 payment, rents go up 3% every year. So 3% per year for 15 years, right? At the end of that term, if you had, hypothetically speaking, let me use round numbers. You had a $1,500 mortgage payment. At the end of 15 years, that mortgage payment is now $2,300, almost $2,300, right? So at $2,300, you have mailbox money. Who paid for the property? The tenant. So let's just say you buy a property at 50. You buy another property at 54. You buy another property at 58. So that means you have 3 properties. So by the time you're 68, you could potentially have all 3 of those properties paid off. So by the time you're 70, you have a retirement income in addition to whatever other mechanism, savings mechanism or retirement mechanisms you have in place. You got 23 times 3. You get it? That's like $7,200 of retirement income. How much money did you invest into those properties? They were paid for by the tenant at the end of the day. And so from an investment perspective, investment properties work exceptionally well. The key to investment properties is do not manage them yourself unless you are properly qualified. That's the biggest demise of investors, is that they make an attempt to manage a property themselves, and either they don't have the stomach to put people out, they don't have the guts to put people out, they're not going to do the proper property inspections. And then when the property gets turned back over to them from a tenant, it is in such disrepair, they have to exhaust all their savings to get the property back in a rentable condition. And so when you hire a property manager, you take all of that off your plate pretty much. And so the difference the conversation that we're having here, we have one place where either you own a home that you live in or you have rental property. And it's up to you which category you fall in. The first thing you want to do is own your own home. The second thing you want to do is get rental property. And the reason why you want to own your home is this. Some people say, well, you should never pay a loan off. I'm not sure which financial advice they're following. I don't subscribe to that point, because the same way, if you buy property when you're 40, you take a 30-year mortgage, you accelerate the payoff. Let's just say you accelerate the payoff and your property is paid off when you're 60. When you're 60, you have no mortgage. All you have to pay is property taxes and insurance. Let me tell you why that's so critical. I'm not there yet, but I've been told when you turn 60, things start to break on you that you never expected to break. They're pains that you never expected to have. So if you put yourself in that position by the time you're 60 and your home is paid off, which means your living expenses are minimal, even if you had to live off of Social Security, you could do it. You could pay with Social Security, you could pay your property taxes and you could pay your insurance at minimum. So my point being this: when you buy a home, what you're doing is you're leveling your living expenses. So when you level your living expenses at age 40, by the time you're 60, you still have this. By the time you're 50 or 55, you still have the same living expenses that you had when you were 40. When you're talking about creating wealth, creating wealth is about managing your expenses. Creating wealth is about creating a financially stable environment for you to live in. And so when you own a home, you're not subjected to that 3% increase that a tenant is subjected to, because the mortgage stays the same. The worst thing that can happen is the property taxes can go up every other year or every few years. It's not going to go up at 3%. It's not going to be that much of a change in your living expenses. So in that space where you're the homeowner, what you're doing is you're stabilizing your living expenses, and it better fosters an environment for you to create more wealth. Even the other side, if you're the landlord and you own a property, the tenant is paying for the property. The tenant is providing all of the financial resources to handle the expenses of owning that property, which ultimately means that what you're doing is you're in a buy and hold. And in that buy and hold, what you're banking on is you're banking on the 15 to 20 year mark. And the reason why you're banking on the 15 to 20 year mark is because at that point, if you have managed that property and the resources, the money from that property properly, you will have been able to accelerate the payoff. And in 15 to 20 years, the property is paid off. So it is 100% a cash flow, or a cash cow that produces mailbox money. I love going on vacation every year. I go on vacation every year because my tenants pay for it. And so either way, so it's two sides to this category. Either you're going to be the landlord, or you're going to be the homeowner, or you're going to be the landlord. The place that is not in your best interest as a person thriving to create wealth is to be the tenant.
Wow.
So,
man, that's so good. People are saying, "Hey, listen, I like that mailbox money. That mailbox money is all right."
and I get mailbox money. I love it. You just go to the mailbox, bloop, and if you want to make it real sweet, do an arch debit. Just have them deposit to your account.
Right.
It just shows up. That feels even better because you don't have to take a check.
That's the electronic mailbox money.
That's electronic mailbox money. There you go. That's email money.
Email money. Hey, well, Lance Smith asked this question. He says, how much do property managers usually cost? What can you expect that to look like?
8 to 10%.
8 to 10%.
Of the rent. 8 to 10% of the rent. So if your rent is $1,000, either they're going to charge you $100, somewhere between $80 to $100 a month. That is peanuts if you ever get an unfortunate tenant. And an unfortunate tenant is one that does not pay the rent and you have to file for eviction. Because depending on what state you're in, it can be real brutal. Sometimes it can take you 4 to 6 months to get them out of your house. And you're running through this and you're going through court to take care of this. You have to take off work. You have to take your time. If one document is not filed properly, you have to start eviction cycle over, which sets you back another month. It's property manager.
So let me ask you this, because Tracy mentioned her daughter's in college and she wants to buy an apartment complex. What's your feelings about multi-unit properties?
I love multi-unit properties. It just so happens in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, they don't love multi-unit properties. We just don't. If you can get a multi-unit property, here's what happens. You maximize your investment opportunity when you have all of your units under one roof. Think about it. If you have 5 single-family houses, that means you have 5 roofs, right? And you have 5 roofs with 5 tenants with 40 walls, because there are 4 walls to each unit. If you can put 4 tenants under one roof, from a maintenance perspective, you consolidate all of the maintenance, you consolidate the headaches, you only have to go to one unit, and you can see 4 tenants at a time, 5 units at a time, that's ideal.
Well, the other thing I want to ask you about, we're seeing this in Charlotte. I've seen it. And I call it community housing. I don't know what the proper name of it, where they'll take a 5-bedroom house and then they'll rent it in rooms.
Okay.
So I want to ask you about that, and then ask you, what do you think about, I know people who've had properties and they've converted them to Airbnbs. I mean, I know right now with COVID-19, travel has stopped or slowed down. So give us your thoughts on those two things.
Okay. Group housing, it depends on the jurisdiction you're in. There are a lot of jurisdictions where technically group housing is not allowed. However, group housing, it can work. You just have to understand what you're signing up for, because you have 5 transient tenants. And the reason why I call them transient tenants is because I can't think of anybody who has an aspiration to live in a room and share a bathroom with 4 or 5 other people. So it's a quality of life. It just depends on what type of energy you like around you. I would never own a group home because I don't like that kind of energy around me. I believe that energy begets energy. And then some people say, well, everybody's got to have a place to live and I'm providing housing for them. Everybody's got a different feeling. However, for me, I'm not the group home kind of guy because I don't like the energy that it brings to the environment.
Yeah. Hey, man, listen, I didn't like the dorm. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. So what about the Airbnb? Is that a good investment? Talk to us.
Airbnb, depending on the location, can be a great option. If you're in a metropolitan area, a vacation area, an area where there's a high level of transient residence required, Airbnb can work exceptionally well. I had one of my clients who they ran an Airbnb. They absolutely loved it because the Airbnb was paying them $3,500 to $4,000 a month, and their mortgage was $2,000. You can't cash flow like that doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from a cash flow perspective, it works exceptionally well and then with Airbnb, the resident pay a cleaning fee, they pay all the local taxes. The Airbnb is stacked in your favor as long as you are in an area that can support the transient residents of an Airbnb. Now, Airbnb is getting a lot of pushback from communities because there are a lot of communities say, we don't like the idea of transient people coming in and out of this house every day. We think that that's a safety risk in our community because we don't know who's coming in and out of that house in any given week, day, or month. So in a lot of places, they're mandating more constraints on Airbnb, and the regulations are just getting higher and higher because the community is not liking the idea of so many transient residents, and it just depends on the community. In Washington D.C., Airbnb is just booms. That's a tourist. It's a high tourist area. If you go to New York, Airbnbs, they boom. If you go in some places in Florida, they boom. In Charlotte, I would imagine if you're near downtown or Center City, it probably could work very well. If you're out in the outskirts in Mecklenburg County somewhere, you might have some issues with Airbnb.
Depends on where you're at. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So here, one thing is Alice Martin. Alice Martin says her son is in real estate. He's in PG County. How can he get a hold of you? So we want to do that. Certainly, I can send Alice your contact information, but I wanted you to get a chance to say how to get a hold of you if someone wants.
Not a problem. Anybody. I'm public. If you go to Facebook and you type up Emerick Peace, EMERICK PEACE, I'll come up. You can look at anything I post. I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm from West Baltimore, but I'm done hiding from folks. And so you can look, you can Google me, Emerick Peace. You can go to you can send me an email, EMERICKPEACE @gmail.com. You can also call me, my cell phone, 240-882-0198. If I don't pick up, send me a text. I return text. I'm not hard to find. Let me put it that way. I'm not hard to find. I'm very Googleable. Let me put it that way.
When did Google become an actual verb, right?
Right.
More questions I want to ask you about.
Okay.
We heard a lot about regentrification, opportunity zones, et cetera, those types of things. What would you say to the person who they're coming through and they're offering them some price for the home because they want to, rebuild that area? Maybe it's a part of an opportunity zone or something like that. So tell me exactly, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it rubs me two different ways. Let me explain the two ways it rubs me. On one hand, it could be an opportunity for you to improve your quality of life. And the other side, it could be to the detriment of your family's future wealth. And the reason why I say that, the opportunity for a better life, is because if you are going to sell a property that is in a gentrifying area, the first question is, what are they offering you for it? Are you maximizing the value? The second question is, when you sell that property, where are you moving to? Are you moving to another home that you're going to purchase? Or are you moving to a rental situation? Because if you move to a rental situation, you're selling your home to move to a temporary living environment. That doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other part of that is, if you're selling that home and somebody really wants to buy it that bad, maybe you should wait until the values go up and then you can really cash in on the property. So it works two different ways. For me, and I tell families in the district all the time, particularly because I do a lot of probate, and I tell them, keep the property in the family if you can. If you're selling it at $300,000 and you see down the street it's selling at $550 right now, it's only a matter of time before that $550 moves down the street. Good decisions begin with good advice. And so what I tell people is, if you're in a gentrifying area and they come and offer you a price for your house, get 4 different prices from 4 different people. And then you make the decision whether that's going to allow you to move, buy another property, and maintain or improve your standard of living, or is it better for you to stay in that home, ride the wave, and look and see what the outcome is actually going to be in 5 to 7 years, and then make the decision of what you want to do with that home, with as far as generational wealth for your family.
I think that's great advice. And I do that too with people, because they'll say, well, I heard I shouldn't pull out of the stock market right now. It's the same type of thing. It may not be a good idea, but on the other hand, it may be a great idea. It's a matter of what are you doing with it once you get the money. And what you just said, if you're moving from home ownership to being a tenant, that don't make a whole lot of sense, no matter what the offer is. But if you're going to buy another piece of property, if you're going to get some other property, then I think that's great. And the other piece is keeping property in the family.
Yes.
I think I met a lady, Ebony, from she's from out in that area, the DMV, and she's really big on just helping people understand the value of keeping the property within the family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can't overlook that property can go from generation to generation to generation.
And the challenge is that we don't really understand that. We don't understand that. All we understand typically is that I'm going to get $100,000 cash. Okay, and you're going to do what with $100,000 cash? Because it's really not a lot of money. It's
Right.
just not. And so, and would it be better for you to not take the $100,000 cash, grow your life by staying in that particular place as a homeowner and stabilize your living expenses, as opposed to sell the property, get $100,000, go to be a tenant, paying $300, $400 more than what you were paying as a homeowner. And then over the course of 20 years, understanding that you still don't own anything. And by the way, your health is failing and you can't afford to pay the rent.
Because it's going up 3% every year. And that was a great point that you brought earlier from a budget standpoint. You buy a home, you're stabilizing your income, because rent is not a fixed expense. It's a variable expense. It's going to change every year, where if you have a home, you can lock it in. But talk about, just real quick, and I know we're after 9. What I see a lot is people will go and they'll get a home equity loan. They'll pull the equity out of their house, HELOCs, all kind of different things, right? So talk to me a little bit about, or if there are some cautions that people should take before they go and they pull the equity out of their house.
The question becomes, why are you pulling equity out of your house? You should never use your house as an ATM. Let me make that clear. Don't ATM your house. If you're taking money out of your house and you're opening up a valuable business and you have a business plan and you have a method of executing that plan to advance the well-being of you and your family, then that's what property is for. It's to leverage to create more wealth. If you're taking out a second to buy a car, which I've seen people do, even sometimes if you're taking a second out on your house for repairs, that's not the best idea most of the time either. And so really the only time you take money out of your house is if you're in a dire, desperate need, or is to make a better investment.
Yeah.
Other than that, leave it alone.
That's great. That's great advice, because I've seen people be encouraged, even even sold on taking out of this equity to get out of debt, pay all your credit cards off and all that stuff. And then they end up right back in the same position, because if they haven't changed the mindset as it relates to loans, debt, credit, they're going to end up right back to where they were. And then my thing is, listen, if you have unsecured debt, as aggravating as that may be, the bill collector's calling or whatever, guess what? They can't come put you out of your crib. Now, you go get a home equity loan, next thing you know, if you can't pay that, they're foreclosing on you. And so we have to take all these things into account. And I think Isaac, my great friend from Grand Rapids, Michigan, said it very well. You must have a strategy. You got to have a strategy. You got to.
It's been so much fun. I mean, people are really getting excited. Emerick, will you return to The Real Money Coach?
Absolutely.
Okay, brother. Everyone heard it. It's live. He ain't hiding. Okay. I lived in Baltimore too for a minute, Emerick, so we got to compare some notes. But, really excited, man. I do have a question. Wayne Collier said, how do you deal with an old family in a poor neighborhood? But what do you do with an inherited old family home in a poor neighborhood that needs lots of repairs? And I know, every situation is different. You probably have to really unpack it. But I think what he's really asking is, any advice, if there is an older home, older family in a poor neighborhood that needs lots of repairs?
What's the upside? You have to take a look at it. It's two ways to look at it. If you're dealing with it from a sentimental perspective, and you have the resources to be able to forge your sentimental attachment, and you notice I said the resources to afford your sentimental attachment, then you do what your conscience guides you to do.
Okay.
If you have a sentimental attachment and you have no resources, then you may be doing your family a disservice by letting the house deteriorate to a place where it's in such disrepair that it has no economic value.
Got it.
And then there's one third column. Do you have the resources to repair the home, to make it a rental property, and will it cash flow enough to pay for itself to satisfy your sentimental attachment to the property? You notice I didn't say it is, and that's we're not talking about a business conversation, because the business conversation is, does the property yield enough money to create a cash flow for the future? And is it really worth keeping, even if it does? Because in some neighborhoods, in some areas, that's like owning a house in some parts of West Baltimore. It's just better to sell it than to keep it in some cases.
Okay.
It just is. Cut your losses, because the energy around it is not worth keeping the property. You sell it and you move on to another property where it's going to make better financial sense and better business sense to keep it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I think one of the things you said about energy, it's so real, right? I mean, it's energy. This is energy. Money is energy, right? And, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And the other thing I want to bring out to our audience and let Tony, share some insights, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll have you back for sure, is the importance of the fact that you said your mom. I think you said that she only made, what was it, $8?
She never made more than $8.75 an hour in her life.
And yet owned three homes free and clear.
Yes.
And so it shows you the power of intention, the power of execution, the power of having a plan, and for all of us, $8.75 an hour. And for Emerick to grow up where he said all he remembers is collecting rent payments, right? So she gave him an incredible gift of planting a seed within him that, look at what he's doing now, right? Because that's all he's known. And so for all the parents, all the grandparents are on, we start now. And I just want to say thank you, Emerick. This has been really phenomenal. You're a man on a mission, brother. And, I'm definitely looking forward to us, taking it to the next level. Because, again, one of the things that you find is that real success is you do what you do the best and you connect with others to do the rest. Stay in your lane. What Tony does, he does with excellence. What you do with excellence. What I do with excellence. And so the power is when we come together. That's synergy, right? That's synergy. And that's where we create this enterprise, this conglomerate, right? This movement. That's what I want to say, this movement, because that's what it's going to take. When you really study history, it's always just a few individuals that have come together that are very focused. So I'm excited, and glad we are really thrilled to have you come back. So Tony, go ahead, share what you want to share.
Well, so we got to have his mom come on, man. She's like the parking lot. The guy in Baltimore from the parking lot attendant that got the large portfolio. Man, we got to have his mom on the show. Tell her how you did it, mama. How did you do it? $8.75 an hour. You own properties. We got to hear from mama, man.
And she raised 5 boys.
Huh? And raised 5 boys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So can I say, would you like single mom, Emerick, is, or was the dad there?
My dad died when I was 2.
Got it.
So,
Got it. Okay. So yeah, that's inspirational. And as Tony said, love to, maybe we do have you and your mom on, again, just talking about this generational wealth, right? Because that's what we're talking about, legacy wealth. And, and for you and your brothers to do so well, because a lot of times, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. And that's the truth. And, I can tell just in your language, in your presence, your energy, you're a man of faith. And, and I just want to commend you for being a blessing, the way you unpack things tonight about the politics, about the landowner, the business owner. It's time for us to step up, and we have the potential. I just watched a documentary called 13th.
Yeah.
Man, come on, brother. Right. And so, Tony, go ahead and share, man. We're going to have Emerick back. This is exciting. We might have to have Emerick back, maybe a 3-part series. I'm just saying,
I don't know. We need to talk about it, Emerick. So expect a call from me tomorrow. Let's talk about.
I'm an open book.
And continue to impact this. But it's just so important that we have the thing that I'm walking away with tonight, too, as we talked about your mom, is the one thing she just didn't show you how to own property, but it was a mindset. It was a mindset. It was an expectation. That is the thing. That's a legacy that she left.
No question.
And, unfortunately, not everyone has that example. Not everyone has that legacy in their life. But thank God that she has that legacy, and that legacy lives through you. I don't know. I may have met some of your siblings, but I know you, and I know you're very successful at what you're doing. And so that's a real testament to your mom. And so it's been a great show tonight. I know that there's probably a whole lot of questions we didn't get to, you guys, and we'll try to get Emerick back as soon as possible to unpack this part 2, because this is very important. We didn't even get to the commercial. We just talked residential. We didn't even talk about commercial ownership and that type of thing. So maybe we'll come back and unpack that. I had some questions I wanted to ask about RITs, those type of things too. So maybe we'll have you back as soon as possible. We could talk about that tomorrow. We could make room for you next week or whatever it looks like. So let's definitely do that.
Let's do it.
I'm going to close this out. Emerick, thank you so much for being here, and just phenomenal presentation tonight.
I'm excited.
Man, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you. This has been phenomenal. Emerick has really just I think, raised the consciousness. That's what I'm feeling. And, what I want you to understand is that this information is so important. And, he really unpacked it, right? And so you can type in the chat box, what did you enjoy the most? What's your takeaway? I mean, I see people saying great information, great practical, easy to understand information, right? And so, just type in the chat box, what did you learn? Because again, this encourages us to take it to the next level, right? And, we're going to have him back and it will be exciting. But, one of the things I want to also encourage you to consider is, as we're talking about, real estate investments, right? You want to connect with individuals that are doing it. Success leaves footprints. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned in my own journey as a business owner and also a real estate owner, is success leaves footprints. And so Emerick said, hey, he gave his cell phone number, he gave his email address. And if you have any other questions, because what we will do at our next time when we have Emerick back is we will make sure that we actually answer your questions on the front end. So take down our email address, info@therealmoneycoach.com, info@therealmoneycoach.com. And go ahead and just send your questions, send your feedback as to, when we do have our next, part 2 of real estate investment, or about the real estate investment opportunity. Go ahead and just, send us an email, because we'd love to understand what are some of your questions so that we can give those to Emerick in advance, so that we can make sure that we, at the front end of our program, actually answer your questions. All right. That's very important. So info@therealmoneycoach.com. And as you remember, I mean, I know many of us joined in, but at the beginning of the show, we talked about the fact that at our YouTube channel, The Real Money Coach, and we're asking you to subscribe right now. So Chris will put that in the chat box because we want you to be able to get other just really basically VIP videos from us. There'll be some things that we post on YouTube that, the only way that you'll be aware of it is by being a subscriber to our The Real Money Coach YouTube page. So Chris will put that in the chat box. It's up earlier in the chat box, but he'll probably put it in right now as well. So I'm just very excited. I hope that you enjoyed. I see the comments. People are saying, wow, this is wonderful. I see Lance Smith said, excellent show. Thank you. One of the key things I learned is the power and importance of real estate, straight up, and being intentional. And so again, every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're here, and again, you see the YouTube channel. Go ahead and click that particular link. Go ahead and subscribe. That's what we're asking you to do right now, because again, this is the type of information, this is the type of content that we're committed to sharing. And I am Marlon Smith, reminding you there's greatness within you. Remember, a vision without action is just a dream. A lot of action without a vision, come on somebody, is merely a passing of time. But a vision, what? A vision with action can change the world. Stay blessed. And remember, there's greatness within you. Live with purpose, because your success is your choice. Stay blessed.